The Stalker series is coming back after a long hiatus, close to a decade and a half on from the launch of its launch installment. We'll soon be getting Stalker 2 Heart of Chernobyl, and though developer GSC Game World has said that newcomers are going to be able to understand and enjoy the game's story without any prior knowledge of the series, at the end of the day, it is a sequel to the original trilogy, which means it's going to have to follow up on the series' story thus far, at least in some fashion. As such, with Stalker 2's launch around the corner, here we're going to take a look back and recap the story of the entire series so far. Before getting into the events of the original 3 games, however, let's first talk about the series' setting, which plays a crucial role in the larger story. The Stalker series takes place in the Chernobyl exclusion zone, which in the Stalker universe became a hub for scientific research and experimentation after the Chernobyl disaster in 1986. The nature of said research was clandestine, to say the least, we'll get to that in a bit, and it continued until 2006, at which point another cataclysmic disaster rendered the zone more hostile and dangerous than ever. By the time the Stalker series kicks off several years later, the zone has deteriorated rapidly and in significant ways. Post-nuclear toxicity has mutated wildlife and plant life within the zone in drastic and varied ways. Factions fight each other within its confines endlessly, while deadly and inexplicable areas with altered laws of physics known as anomalies are also scattered throughout the zone. On top of all of that, the zone also frequently sees massive surges and explosions of mysterious psychic energy emanating from its center, known as the emissions. Meanwhile, daring, or suicidal depending on who you ask, expeditioners and scavengers also often explore the zone in search of valuable treasures and research, and are referred to as stalkers. The earliest game in the series chronology is actually not its first installment, but rather its sophomore outing, Stalker Clear Sky, which serves as a prequel to and directly leads into the events of the series' first game. In Clear Sky, players step into the shoes of Scar, an experienced mercenary operating within the zone, who, as the game begins, happens to be escorting a team of ecologists. Things quickly take a turn for the worse, however, when the group is attacked by a horde of mutants, while not long afterward, a wave of emissions hits them as well, knocking the player unconscious. Scar awakens sometime later and finds himself in the base of the Clear Sky faction, a group that claims to be dedicated to understanding the mysteries of the zone for the betterment of humanity. Scar's survival is an enigma to many, though most humans die when caught in emissions. Scar and his brain seem relatively intact, thanks to some form of immunity. Meanwhile, he's also told by Lebedev, the leader of the Clear Sky faction, that the emission that hit him was part of a larger problem. Emissions throughout the zone have expanded dramatically, and Lebedev believes that that's because someone is trying to take it to the zone's center, and that the zone is sending out emissions in response to protect itself and its secrets. And who exactly is it that's trying to make it to the center of the zone? That would be a group of stalkers led by veteran stalker named Sturlock, who is driven to make it to the zone's center at any cost. His goal, it seems, is to reach the heart of the sarcophagus surrounding the Chernobyl nuclear power plant, where he intends to find the Wish Granter, a mysterious monolithic entity that is said to grant the wishes to anyone who reaches it. Getting to the heart of the zone, however, is difficult for many reasons, not only because of the many emissions, anomalies, mutants, and what have you, but also because of the installation known as the Brain Scorcher, which sends out violent psi waves using its antennas in order to keep people away from the center of the zone. Zombie-like human cultists of the Monolith faction also constantly fight tooth and nail to keep everyone out. And now, Scar has also been added to the list of things trying to keep Sturlock from reaching the zone's center. With Sturlock's actions having caused the aggressive emissions, Scar is told by Clear Sky leadership that if Sturlock isn't stopped, the emissions will keep getting worse, which is obviously far from ideal for everyone in the zone. As such, Scar's new mission now is to find and kill Sturlock. That proves to be a complicated task, and Scar spends a significant portion of the game trying to find and kill Sturlock. The final confrontation between the two happens at the nuclear power plant, where though Scar is able to incapacitate and defeat Sturlock, things still don't go as planned. The zone releases another emission, hitting everyone present. Scar's fate is left unknown, though thanks to officially released pre-release footage, we do know that he will appear in Stalker 2, while Sturlock is knocked unconscious. From here, we get to the series' first installment, Stalker Shadow of Chernobyl, though before getting into its story, we're going to have to spoil its big twist ahead of time. Players spend much of Stalker Shadow of Chernobyl playing as an amnesiac and nameless stalker referred to only as the Marked One, who only knows that his mission is to find and kill Sturlock. It is revealed later on, however, that the Marked One is Sturlock himself. How did we get to that point? Well, we'll circle back to this, so let's put a pin in it for now. As Shadow of Chernobyl kicks off, the amnesiac Marked One sets off on his quest to find and kill Sturlock, as part of which he learns that Sturlock's aim is to make it to the heart of the zone and find the Wish Granter. That means the Marked One too is now headed for the heart of the zone, which means he first needs to make it past the Brain Scorcher, which we briefly touched on earlier. After many trials and tribulations, the Marked One is able to disable the Brain Scorcher, though as a result of that, many forces, including even the Ukraine military, start making their way deeper into the zone, hoping to claim its many secrets and treasures for themselves. That, in turn, means the Marked One is going to have no shortage of enemies to fight through on his path to the heart of the sarcophagus. Eventually, as we approach the end of Shadow of Chernobyl, the Marked One succeeds in making it to the heart of the sarcophagus, where, surprisingly enough, he finds a secret lab. Here, he finds himself face to face with a digital entity known as the C Consciousness, and it's at this point that many of Stalker's biggest mysteries are unraveled. For starters, the Marked One is told that he is Sturlock himself, and that after he was hit with an emission previously, i.e. at the end of Stalker Clear Sky, though most of the Clear Sky faction was killed, the unconscious Sturlock was brainwashed and, thanks to a case of mistaken identity, given the mission to kill Sturlock himself. Beyond that, meanwhile, deeper and older secrets of the zone itself are also revealed. After the Chernobyl disaster in 1986, the Soviet Union established the exclusion zone as a hub for scientific research, experimentation, and activity. Those experiments continued even after the dissolution of the Soviet Union in 1991, and the continued scientific study eventually led to the discovery of the noosphere, described as an invisible field of energy created by, linked by, affected by, and affecting every human mind, both individually and collectively. Realizing that research into the noosphere could potentially lead to discovery of methods of physically controlling humans on a global scale, 7 scientists in charge of the zone came together and created the C Consciousness, a neurally linked hive mind of the consciousness, and soon their experiments with the noosphere began. They soon led to disaster, however, when an experiment in 2006 caused a rift in the noosphere, leading to a second disaster hitting Chernobyl, and this one much wider in scale, creating reality-altering anomalies throughout the zone. That, in turn, attracted the attention of all manner of people from the outside world, with military, scientific, government personnel, mercenaries, and many others all trying to make it to the zone for their own personal gain, drawn by the awesome, mind-bending anomalies. It promptly became clear to the C Consciousness then that it needed to find ways to protect itself, and so it took certain steps to try and stop people from making it to the center of the zone. In addition to emissions, that also included the construction of the Brain Scorcher, as well as the Wish Granter, the actual purpose of which was to brainwash anyone who reached it and turn them into a cultist intent on safeguarding the zone and preventing outsiders from reaching its heart. On top of that, every time someone does manage to reach the Wish Granter, the zone also expands by 5 kilometers in all directions, making its existence and actual purpose even more nefarious. As Stalker Shadow of Chernobyl barrels towards its conclusion, Sturlock is given the choice to either link his consciousness with the C Consciousness and become part of the hive mind, or attempt to stop it. The latter is the canon choice, and ends with Sturlock managing to find the original 7 scientists who formed the hive mind themselves, killing them and destroying the C Consciousness. But though the threat of the C Consciousness has been removed, the story of the zone is far from over. Here we arrive at Stalker Call of Pripyat, the series' 3rd installment and a direct follow-up to Shadow of Chernobyl, picking up its story after Stalker Clear Sky decided to wind the clock back with Scar's story. After Sturlock disables the Brain Scorcher in Shadow of Chernobyl, the Ukraine military sends a team of 5 helicopters into the zone with the intention of doing thorough recon ahead of a full-scale incursion. Things go wrong, however, when all 5 helicopters end up crashing under mysterious circumstances. In response, the Ukraine government hires SBU agent Major Alexander Degtyarev, our new protagonist, to head into the zone and look into the crash. The Major's journey throughout the zone is a long, harrowing, and eventful one, though he does discover several key things. For starters, he learns that the reason the helicopters crashed was because they were hit by an anomaly of electrical shocks. Though the operation had been preceded by what was believed to be thorough preparation, including a mapping out of the exact location of all anomalies in the zone, it turns out that the anomalies changed positions after each emission, which is why the choppers were caught completely off guard. The Major also discovers that the survivors of the crash have made their way to Pripyat, which is where the Major eventually finds himself as well, though not before having to fight through hordes of enemies in the form of mutants and monolith cultists. Eventually, the Major finds the survivors in Pripyat and also crosses paths with none other than Sturlock. Together, thanks to Sturlock's knowledge of the zone and how it operates, all of them together are able to contact the military and call for a rescue. Like its predecessors, Stalker Call of Pripyat has multiple endings. The canon ending sees the Major becoming the head of the security service in the zone, while Sturlock becoming the chief consultant for the government organization called Scientific Institute for Research of the Chernobyl Anomalous Area, which is created after Sturlock gives the military every bit of information he has on the zone. Meanwhile, by now, it's also becoming clear to everyone that the zone is slowly expanding its borders, which, knowing what dangers lie within its confines, is obviously nothing but bad news to the people outside. How that leads into the upcoming Stalker 2 Heart of Chernobyl remains to be seen. We know that we'll be playing as a new protagonist yet again in the form of a stalker named Skiff. As previously mentioned, we know that Scar will be returning, and though it's yet to be officially confirmed, we'd bet that Major and Sturlock have roles to play as well. Either way, it's abundantly clear that there's plenty of mysteries left unsolved in the heart of the zone. So we're more than a little curious about how the Stalker series' long-awaited return will choose to take that story forward. Thankfully, we won't have to wait terribly long to get the answers to our questions. Hey, did you know that we at GamingBolt upload new videos every day? Stick around, drop a like, subscribe, and hit that bell. And let us know what kind of content you'd like to see in the future with a comment below.